Welcome to today's live stream. My name is Arlene Pellicane. I am the spokesperson for National Marriage Week. You're here because you want to make your marriage stronger, and we have assembled an amazing panel of experts who are specialists in this area and who are ready to give of their time to help you. So we are so glad you're here. If you happen to be sitting next to your spouse, grab their hand. We are in for a treat. You know, every February 7th to 14th, we celebrate National Marriage Week. This is a campaign, a movement of people who want to declare to the world that marriage is good. It's good for us, it's good for society, and it is good for nations. So this year's theme is Together with Purpose. And that's why we're here, because we believe the purpose of marriage is worth fighting for, worth learning about and getting better at. So let's get started.
Hello, viewers. I am so delighted you've joined our National Marriage Week panel discussion tonight. I'm Amy Morgan, your moderator this evening. Tonight's topic is building a shared life, how to create rhythms together. Each of our panel guest couples have been married for decades. They've experienced joys and storms together over the years and learned some things along the way that can inspire and help us on our journeys. I am so happy to introduce them to you tonight. You are in for a treat. Brad and Tami Miller of Tandem Marriage are marriage coaches who've been helping couples enjoy their ride through life together for 25 years. Tami is a retired licensed marriage and family therapist, and Brad is a retired firefighter and pastor. As a team, they are well equipped to help couples through many challenges. They've written a book together on conflict resolution in marriage called Ready to Surrender, have a membership page on their website that features video-based marriage tools and more, and they built a marriage ministry from the ground up at one of California's largest churches. And Tami and Brad will tell you that they are just getting started. Also in their fourth decade of marriage, Ron and Nan Deal are the authors of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Mindful Marriage: Create Your Best Relationship Through Understanding and Managing Yourself, and are popular marriage conference speakers. Ron is the best-selling author of more than a dozen books and resources, a licensed marriage and family therapist, podcast host, and a senior director for family life. He is the most widely read and viewed author on blended families in the country. Nan retired from teaching after 25 years and currently works for a Christian nonprofit ministry. Susie and Kevin Larson have also been married for 40 years. Susie is a best-selling author, national speaker, and talk radio host. Kevin is a senior project manager in commercial construction who specializes in building sports stadiums and hospitals. Together, Susie and Kevin have 3 grown sons, 3 beautiful daughters-in-law, and a growing bunch of grandchildren. Their passion is to see everyone grow to know the depths of God's love and the height of their calling in Jesus Christ. Their family legacy involves living generously, helping the poor, strengthening the church, and leaving people and places better than they found them. Tami and Brad, Susie, Kevin, Ron, Nan, thank you all for being here and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Honored.
Well, despite the 120 years of combined marriage experience.
Okay, I feel old now. Thank you very much.
120 years,
Wow.
wow.
I know. I think you'd agree that none of your relationships have been all rainbows and unicorns. You
That's
each
right.
have a story of how you overcame real hardship to reach the place of thriving you are now. Tami and Brad, you talk about not having examples of how to do marriage from your families of origin. Can you share how you realized you needed help and what you did?
Yes. Well, thank you for asking. We now know that a thriving marriage requires more than just romantic love and good intentions, but we thought in the beginning that that was enough. That's all we had. For me, it really was around our 5th or 6th year of being married that I knew we were in trouble and we needed some help. We were stuck in a cycle of negativity and we really had no idea how to get out. We didn't have the tools, we didn't have the knowledge, we didn't have the experience to get out, and we were in trouble. One of the smartest things we ever did was we desperately reached out to a couple, an older couple in our church of 100 people, and we said, we need some help. And they said yes.
Yeah.
I'll let Tami tell you some more, but that's the beginning of it.
Well, we always say to our struggling couples that we work with, if we can do it,
can do it. And we have good reason to say that. Between Brad's parents and 3 brothers, between my parents and 2 brothers, we have 13 divorces. Do the math there, 13 divorces in our family. Not a single example of a couple building a shared life together. Not a single example. So as you can imagine, for the first, 5 to 8 years of marriage, we were challenged in ways that we never expected. At that point, we're growing our family. We have 2 daughters. There's job changes. We bought a home, took on more bills, all the things that young couples start doing when they're in the thick of it all. And we did not know what we were doing in this thing called marriage. We had no idea.
It's an understatement to say it was bumpy.
For myself, I never saw or experienced my parents fighting for someone. I never saw that. I didn't know what it would look like or what it would feel like. I only saw my parents fighting with each other, never for each other. And there's a big difference. Think about that. Everybody wants somebody to fight for them. So around year 8, with 2 kiddos in our life, I wanted to actually exit out of our marriage. I was at that place that I'm not happy.
It's the only time I've ever told her no, by the way.
That's all I knew. That's all Brad knew too, is just exits. But Brad said to me, I still remember clear as day, we were in the car and he stopped, pulled over, and he said, no, I'm going to fight for you and I'm going to fight for us. You know what? He did not come from a family that said that, or he didn't experience it, because it only could have been God at that point. He was intervening. He did not have that in his upbringing either. So it really took my breath away what he said. And I remember looking at him, and I didn't really have words, but I know what I felt. I wanted to experience someone fighting for me. I did. I wanted to know, what would that look like? What would that feel like? Because I never experienced it as a child. Wouldn't it be nice if I could say at this point that we lived happily ever after? No, we were the blind leading the blind, right? We really were. We needed help. So what we did is we read every marriage book we can get our hands on. We went to every marriage conference that we heard about. In fact, those were our vacations, because we didn't have much money. So that's what our vacations were, was going to a marriage conference. We were desperate to figure out what to do differently in our marriage so that we didn't end up divorced just like everyone else around us. So the most important step we took was just started committing ourselves to going to church. And like Brad said, we clung to our pastor and his wife and a few other mentors. By the way, we still have mentor couples in our life today. It helped us then, and we feel like at every phase, it is so important. So going to church, having mentors was not something we saw growing up. So we thought, let's do this differently. And it made such a difference in our marriage. It really did. Our little family was going to change generational patterns.
And I'll wrap up with this. Statistically speaking, it's not hard to figure out that we shouldn't still be married. But that's why we always say, if we can do it, you can do it. We work with a lot of hard couples in hard situations, and we truly default back to, if we can do it, you can do it. We have a thriving marriage. It's not perfect. Sometimes it feels like a beautiful mess. It's beautiful because we've invited God into the middle of it. But sometimes it's a mess because as we take our individual me's and try to form those into a cohesive we, it can be a bit messy. But we're here for all of it.
Oh, I love that. Well, Susie, you and Kevin's marriage also started out with a bang. 3 little boys, bed rest, a bout of long undiagnosed Lyme disease, and then Kevin's cancer battle. How did your tough beginning set up a vicious cycle?
Well, I'd have to go back even a little bit. I grew up in a large family in a denomination where I knew God was real. I had a sense of God's presence as a child. I did not know Jesus was accessible. I did not hear the gospel. I was a people pleaser. And I had 2 significant traumas that I suffered at the hands of some teenage boys in our neighborhood. One was a sexual trauma. One was a different group of boys who jumped me on the way home from school and beat me up. really bad. And I was just this 4-foot girl. And just to tell you how short I am, my husband's sitting down right now, standing up. But anyway, I was just this little thing, and they jumped me and beat me up for sport. And I got up from that beating, and I heard a voice in my ear. It wasn't audible, but I heard, I can get to you anytime, anywhere, and God will never stop me. And at that moment, I knew the devil was real too. And so fear really did enter my life. So you jump in. I came to Christ in my teenage years. So even as a newly married woman, I still was, my spiritual formation was really in its baby stages. We were going to wait 5 years to have kids. We found out we were pregnant on our honeymoon. We got pregnant on our honeymoon. And that we found out during the pregnancy, I had something called endometriosis. And they said, you will need a hysterectomy in your 20s. So if you want more kids, have them now. Number 2 pregnancy, I was on bed rest for 3 months with a 1-year-old. Number 3 pregnancy, I was on bed rest for 6 months with a 1 and a 3-year-old. So right away, my husband was thrust into overworking multiple jobs so we wouldn't lose our home and our medical debt. We didn't have great insurance, and I was going in and out of the hospital to stop labor. And if you remember, I brought a baggage of trauma into the marriage. And I was passionate about Jesus. And the night he proposed to me, he washed my feet on this beach, and we declared our submission to God, saying, we're not going to play religion. We want our kids, when we have a family, to see this is real. They're going to see our dependence on God. I mean, we really meant that. But I think once I was really set free to run after Jesus, in the way that I wanted to, and we went to a Bible teaching church, I was serving in multiple capacities. And I would say in part because of my passion, but in part because I still felt like I had to earn, I was still striving. So to go to bed for 6 months was devastating, and a lot of my trauma and identity issues creeped up. And long story short, there was one day during the 6-month pregnancy bed rest that my doc said, let's just get you up and see if you're going to be okay. Because I was getting depressed. I was feeling so insecure. I was using up all my friend favorites. I was watching, we were still fairly new in our marriage, and he was exhausted from being the father, the mother, the husband. He was doing everything. And it just confronted every insecurity I had. And since the contractions had settled down a bit, the doc just said, let's just see if we can get you up. And I got up. It was a fall day in the Midwest, met my old college roommates, and we went for a walk. I was very careful. We had lunch, but by nighttime I was contracting and went back to bed. And 2 weeks from that outing, my face went numb. My arms went numb. The room started to spin. And long story short, it would be a year later, I'd find that one day I was bit by the deer tick and contracted Lyme disease, and it embedded in my nervous system. And 36 years later, I still deal daily with neural symptoms and have to fight super hard to be okay. And it's a long story, but I will say it was such a rocky start. And I will toss it to Kev because here's the young husband, trying to carry the world on his shoulders with then 3 little boys and a sick wife.
Yeah, Brad, you said it. You used the right word. I feel like it was a mess as we look back on it. And you think about those times in our life where it was a struggle. We felt like, we're just, our nose was right up to the waterline, and we just get a breath every now and then. It kind of felt like that. So we went through a lot in our early years, which really, I think it drew us together in a lot of ways where we were so dependent. We had a lot of friends at the time that, they were on their second house and they were on their vacations and they were just living their best life. And feels like it's holding on by a thread, So it really built a foundation in us that feels like we continue to look back on that now. Like that really strengthened our marriage in a lot of ways, even though it was so difficult. But living in the mess, Brad, you're right. It was that was a time where we just were holding on to each other and doing the best that we could do.
And I will say things got much worse before they got better. There's a point in our story that you'll hear in a few moments where my love had grown cold, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But I'll tell you, as a young woman who, I've said this a lot when I speak at women's conferences. I knew I had right theology around salvation. I knew I was saved. I didn't know I was loved. And I would submit to you, many seasoned Christians, I would even say pastors in some cases, have a right theology around salvation, but they don't know they're loved. And if you don't know you're loved, you miss everything. Really, it's like so much of the Christian journey becomes about ought tos and should dos. And so there was a point where, first they thought it was a brain tumor, then they thought it was MS. And my friends were going away, and they couldn't believe it. After 6 months of bed rest, I had these overlapping neural symptoms. And so once our youngest son was born and the symptoms start to flare, there was a point where I was talking to my hubby or my sister on the phone. It was probably a year in. So our youngest was a year old, and I started to mix my words up, and I wasn't making sense. And the room started to spin again, and my face went numb again. And she said, "Hang up, I'm calling Kevin." And she hung up the phone. And now, if you have to remember, my husband had to run home from work all the time because the contractions would, spike, and he would have to run me into, he was this young guy trying to get established, and he's running home all the time. And so there I'm sitting on the couch feeling like the most effective wife in the world. I couldn't believe this was my life. And he came home, and he was so patient, and, knelt down next to me and said, what, are you okay? What? And I just said, I'm not okay. And I'm so sorry. I'm not okay. And he scooped me up and he brought me to the hospital. And that's when they told him brain tumor, MS. And that's right. That was a little earlier. And then anyway, that's when they said, we have to do a bunch of tests on her. It looks like a brain tumor or MS. We're going to send you home from the ER, get you some doctor appointments. That was it. This was earlier. Anyway, it was a winter, gray, sleety day. I'll never forget it. And it was the darkest hour of my life because I was so young, and I didn't think this was this isn't what I imagined, right? And I knew a woman in our church who was young and kind of athletic. I was a fitness person, and she had spiraled from MS. So, I think the enemy does that a lot. He puts your worst fears in front of you to get you to project your worst case scenario. And I was terrified. God seemed silent. I wondered if he changed his mind about me. And so he carried me out of the car into bed and tucked me in. And he was about to walk out and had grabbed his arm, and I pulled him back, and I just said, I want you to divorce me. And he looked, and I was serious. I was ready to self-sabotage because I could not bear being such a debt to the family. And I was just weeping. I just said, I want you to marry someone who loves Jesus. I want someone who will love these boys, and I'll go live with my parents. And, and I even said, you didn't sign up for this, but we do sign up for these things when we pledge our covenant before God. But I was speaking out of pain and terror and fear. And he knelt down and he put his finger over my lips and he said, you listen to me. You are my bride, and you always will be. And if I have to kneel down to kiss you because you're in a wheelchair, then that's what I'm going to do. And I experienced God in the most tangible way I ever had in my whole life. And it helped me understand that God so loved the world, because he wasn't speaking out of the emotion in the moment. He'd been giving and giving and giving and serving. He said it out of firm commitment. And that was actually super foundational in my walk with God. And things, again, would get worse before they would get better. But I'll never forget that moment. But you did for me there.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Susie. I know even now, decades later, it still really touches all of our hearts and resonates with all of us. Ron, you and Nan also have a pain point. You suffered a loss, a devastating loss. Can you tell us briefly what happened and where you sought help?
We can. Actually, next Tuesday, February 17th, will be 17 years. That is the day our son passed away, February 17th of 2009. And actually this year, 17 on the 17th, and the days are lining up exactly like they were in the year 2009. He was perfectly healthy, our middle son, Connor. Our boys were 14, 12, and 10 at the time, my wonderful stair steps. He was in the middle. And really, it was like a Norman Rockwell picture with a we actually even had the golden retriever to go with our painting. It was a sweet season where they were preteens, but they weren't getting edgy yet, and it was a sweet time. And he got a headache one night, and then 10 days later, a MRSA staph infection took his life. And it's a bag. It's a baggage in a bag that was thrown at us after actually 20 years of marriage. And the God thing in that is 2 years before that, the bottom dropped out, and I was like, I met Ron in the middle of our...
She threw a suitcase down and said it's you or me, but someone's going tonight.
Yeah, it was a challenge. Like, I can't do us anymore doing this dysfunctional dance that we keep doing. And so we got some help. I said, find us a therapist. And his mentor, Dr. Terry Hargrave. We were in his office the next day, and we had been seeing Terry for 2 years prior to Connor's passing. And so I look at that now and I think what a gift that was for us. And that was the help that we needed. And Terry kind of stopped the marriage therapy at that point and just did beautiful grief therapy with us. I think some of the things that have helped us in the loss area with our son has been other grieving parents who are ahead of us. We really needed to hear from those voices, because some of the other voices have not been helpful along the way. And one of those unhelpful things that I'd love to share with this being a marriage thing is that myth that 90% of all marriages end in divorce after the loss of a child. It is not true.
It's not true.
It is not true.
And it's really not helpful for people to throw that in your face after you dealt with a loss, like
so
as if more
unhelpful.
is going to happen.
Like you've just buried your child and laid them to rest, and then people are coming at you with, your marriage is going to blow up and end, and just not very helpful at all. And so the stat that I got, the most current one was from an organization for bereaved parents, Compassionate Friends, and it's 16%.
Yeah,
so
it's nowhere near
it's
what
very low.
people are afraid that it is.
So much more hopeful.
It is so much more helpful, and I wish people would share that instead of the gloom and doom, on top of the gloom and doom that you're already experiencing. But I think that's the hardest thing we have navigated individually and in our marriage.
Hands down.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things, thank you for honoring us with that story too. I mean, we all have our stories, right? And
we do.
I know that people watching are finding themselves in all or some of them. And I appreciate that hopeful statistic as well. You know, Ron, and I'm so glad, Nan, that you brought up the Hargraves and and how they talked about that pain cycle and some of the ways they were helping you deal with that reactivity. Could you unpack that? Because not everybody, a lot of people I would imagine who are watching haven't heard about that. And we've heard about this pain, but yet you guys have made it to the other side.
Yeah.
So share with us a little bit about how you got there, because there's someone who needs to hear that.
It's a great question, Amy. Really, it comes down to this. Why do good, loving, decent, God-fearing people have what I like to call Romans 7 moments? You know, when you keep on doing the things you don't want to do anymore. Like, you know, why do we become people at certain times that we don't want to be? It's sort of like, you've heard the expression, I lost my Jesus, you know. Like, why do I get angry? Why do I bite? Why do I get snippy? Why do I get prideful? I don't want to be that guy. I study all the time to not be that guy. And most of the time, we're not those people. But we all have those dysregulated moments. Dysregulated is a big neurological term flying around these days. And it basically means you kind of lose yourself. So let me just see if I can sum up 30 years of neuroscience in about 2 minutes to tell everybody why this happens, because there really is a reasonable explanation for why this happens. And actually, we've heard it from everybody here tonight. All of us have shared about times in our life where we just became something we didn't want to be. And here's what it comes down to. For the moment you're born, your brain is writing a little story about you and about life and about your world. And essentially, we call it the pain story. Anytime you don't feel loved or you don't feel safe, and we heard those themes pop out in some of the stories already. Anytime you don't feel loved and you don't feel safe, you're trying to determine what you're supposed to do about that. Now, God has put this amazing thing in our brain that says, hey, I don't feel loved, I don't feel emotionally safe or physically safe, so I need to respond to this moment. And you put on fight or flight. And it just sort of comes out of you. You don't have to think about it. It's just automatically there. Your body goes into self-protection mode. And you take action. That action, fight or flight action, comes down to 4 main types. You either get blaming about other people, you get shaming about yourself, you get controlling about your world, or you try to escape the unloving or the painful moment. Now what happens is, over time, that those 2 things get paired in your brain, and it creates this little neurological rut. Painful things, and here's how I cope or react to that. And that gets paired, there's a little rut in your brain, and guess what? Fast forward, I'm 59, and I still do the exact same thing. because that's what my brain knows. It's a reflex at this point. It's why you brush your teeth the same way every time. It's why you do certain things. It's why you can drive a car now and not think about it, because all those ruts have been created and your brain just knows what to do. But unfortunately, anytime that little pain center gets tapped, ooh, I feel in love. She just looked at me and that made me, I'm not sure I'm safe right now in this relationship. Are you sure you're really committed? Anytime it taps into that pain center, guess what? Your blame, shame, control, or escape reactivity sets off. Some of us do all four. Some of us do one of them really well. I'm a twofer. Nan's all four. And it's crazy. It's sort of like we lose our mind. We do. We actually stop thinking. Your brain is not going, Jesus, who should I be right now? How do I put on my calm? They said, Brad and Tami said, I should communicate this way. I know how to do that, but in those dysregulated moments, that part of your brain shuts off, and you literally cannot access what you know how to do, and you become like a child. Quick story. My family, we were walking through a canyon one time outside Amarillo, Texas, and all of a sudden hear a rattlesnake. We all heard it. Now, what did not happen at that point is I did not have to call a committee together and say, what should we do about the rattlesnake? I don't think we need to analyze this. No, reactivity sets off, fight or flight kicks in. We knew we went control and escape. Blame, shame, control, move away. I took charge. We escaped the rattlesnake. Now, here's the crazy thing about this. My brain does not know the difference between rattlesnakes and her criticism.
It's true.
And all of us watching today,
It is true.
your brain does not know the difference between somebody jumping out in the middle of the night with a knife in a dark alley and your mother's expectations that you've never been able to meet your entire life. Your brain does not know the difference. When you go into reactivity, your old self kicks in. Now that's what Paul talks about all throughout the New Testament. Your old self, your flesh. This is your Romans 7 moment. Your flesh takes over, literally neurological ruts take over, and you become the person you don't want to be. The good news is, Scripture teaches, we can have a Romans 8.
Thank you, Lord.
Transformation. You can renew your mind, or renew yourself, transform by the renewing of your mind. Literally, your mind can tell your brain how to respond differently. But it's a journey and a process to go from my old self to my new self, and you really have to work at this because the ruts are deep. But the beautiful thing is you can create new ruts by the power of the Holy Spirit. You can create new patterns, new habits, such that your brain literally changes because of what you're learning to do, and that old self gets more and more distant and further away. Even when you feel the painful moments, you can learn how to respond differently. But this is something we really just haven't understood at all until the last 30 years. And it's finally sort of finding its way into the Christian community. And so it's just something we're super excited about. And our mentor, Dr. Hargrave, on the day we ended up in his office, he's the brainchild behind all this stuff that we're sharing and how to change. And we were the recipients of that in 2007. And it's
So
just
grateful.
amazing what it has done in our lives. And we just love sharing it with other people.
Can I ask you a follow-up? How would someone know? You were saying, Nan's got all four. I definitely was thinking about mine. How could someone know what their reactivity cycle is?
We've got a free assessment online. That's a good place to start. Our book, The Mindful Marriage, is going to unpack this in depth. You're going to learn a lot about yourself and learn how to go old self to new self. But take that free assessment we've got online. I think we're going to put up a link on the screen.
It's in the chat. Yeah.
Great. So people can get access to that. And in about 15 minutes, it's scary accurate.
It really is.
I mean, you kind of go, oh my goodness. And this is who I've been. This is why I have my Romans 7 moments. And this is who I'm going to be the rest of my life unless I do something about it.
Well, when you talk about that scary old self, Brad, I think you've used the word wolf pack and something that you mentioned in that cycle. So that was immediate. I was thinking of the werewolf. Will you tell us what you meant by that?
Yeah, of course. We always tell couples that the challenges they are having currently in their marriage started long before the two of them ever met. It's the same thing. As a husband and wife, you're raised in different wolf packs or different families, really, with different values, different preferences about everything. And this, on a brain level, this forms everything we think and do. We think we go into marriage to become complete. Wouldn't it be great if it worked out that way? But instead we end up exposing, this is a word we use all the time, we end up exposing in each other the feelings of being abandoned, of not feeling important or not good enough or not loved. And this is precisely the pain cycle that Ron was talking about.
Indeed.
And you have to work yourself out of that pain cycle so that you can grow as an individual and you can grow in your marriage. And you have to grow through the pain to come out the other side so that you can build a shared life. That's what we're here talking about tonight.
That's good.
True. Well, for Brad and I, we've many decades together and gone through several phases in each decade, some joyous, some full of great challenges. We talk about the decade, our 50s, we found ourselves dealing with aging parents who needed our help. Gosh, you guys, nobody prepares you for this phase. Nobody prepares you. And to make things even harder for us, our parents did not age gracefully, and nor did they plan financially well. They didn't. So as you can imagine, this brought on a lot of unexpected stress in our lives, emotional and financial. And so we had to figure out how to work as a team to avoid slipping into a pain cycle, because the tension was high and stress was high, and it was just so unexpected that, there's times I would feel alone and, rejected or abandoned by Brad. And, there's things that could have popped up, but guess what? We really decided we had to be a team. So we did things like we would tag team each other when our emotional capacity, our limits, we've reached it. We could no longer take anymore. And you know what? You can see your spouse reach that limit especially when you're working with your aging parents, trying to help them. Because you know what? No matter if you're in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, or 70s, if your parents are still alive, they trigger you. Yes. They bring out all those old core feelings that write scripts for you. They do. It's crazy how that happens.
My mom was actually the sweetest woman anybody would ever meet, but boy, she could push my buttons like nobody else.
Yeah.
Pain cycle.
Yes. I always grew up feeling like I was never good enough. And it just felt like, man, I couldn't escape that. I thought that was in my past. Why is this in my present right now? And so Brad and I would team together and talk it through. We sought wise counsel together when we had to make some big financial decisions, because we wanted to avoid making very unwise emotional decisions. So again, we worked together. We had our own mentors in our life and people around us to just let us complain and not be criticized or judged, and cry when we needed someone. We really did.
Yeah.
So good.
Yes. I've lost both of my parents in the past several years, and they were, at a advanced age. So I definitely can empathize with you there and know what you're talking about. Susie and Kevin, your marriage, you talked about, was breaking point due to years of just withdrawals from your love bank. But you had a catalyst that brought you to the beautiful relationship you have today. Could you describe what happened?
Well, let me start by saying, with what Kev did for me when he made that pledge, that carried me for so long. And he, he's hyper responsible. So he was working 3 jobs to keep us in our house, keep food on the table. But years went by, and when the crisis settled down, my beloved didn't slow down, and he just continued. He developed a full-blown workaholism, and he's a senior project manager for large-scale construction projects. So they're massive projects. So there would be seasons of 9 months, 12 months, 18 months where his nose is in the grindstone, and in his mind, and he'll explain that more, but like, we're good, we're a solid Christian couple. And we didn't know love languages at that point, but my love languages are quality time and acts of service, and those were not happening at all. But for these stints that were happening, because of what he did for me in those early years, especially in that moment, I felt guilty for being frustrated. So I just sort of stuck it down. I tried to talk with him a little bit about it, but I didn't feel entitled to any kind of attitude, because I still was dealing with some health issues, and I just felt a bit like a debt to society. But then it got to the point where the stretches were getting longer and longer. And then he was diagnosed with cancer. And I was really on my face asking God, show me, Lord, show him, help us. And there was a point then when he was diagnosed with cancer. It changed him, but things got worse for us before they got better.
Yeah, I really didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. We're both kind of high capacity. We work hard. We produce a lot, and that was just the job that I was in. My whole world is schedules and budgets and things like that. That's just like, it's kind of in my DNA, it feels like. But I've just applied that so much in my life. Like, this is what I have to do right now. And there's probably so many guys listening, I bet, that are like in that place where I feel like I have to do this. This is the only way to do this. Right now, I love to mentor young guys, especially young guys in the marketplace that are kind of in their 20s maybe, and they're kind of getting into the season where they're chasing their careers. And it's what I was doing at the time. Really, it was survival. It feels like for me, I wasn't chasing the next promotion. I was just trying to survive. But at that time, I was trying to do everything I could just to keep our nose above the waterline. But I love to tell young guys now when I mentor them, I watch their life, and you got to watch every part of your life, because I tell young guys all the time, anybody can kill it in one area of your life. You can kill it in your career, but then you want to look at, it's like, how's your marriage, and how's your kids, and how's your family, and how's your relationships, and are you serving at your church, and all those different things. So to try to find that balance, I did not have that, and I didn't even know that I was missing it at the time. I just thought, I'm doing everything I could possibly do here just to keep food on our table.
And we were volunteer youth pastors. So in your mind, we were serving. We had 40 kids at our house every week.
We did a lot. We just keep saying yes, and not in a good way, but it cost us in a big way.
So then he got cancer, and that changed his life. And when he speaks on this, he says there's life before cancer and life after. So he really saw his mortality. What that wake-up call did was, because he had so much work in the marketplace in commercial construction, he thought, I'm going to switch this ratio, and I'm going to be done with my heart. I'm going to do my job with excellence, but I'm going to put a lot more time.
I said I have to do what matters.
Do the kingdom stuff. So what happened then was, and this is where things went awry for us, is we were already volunteer youth pastors, and again, he's got a big job, day job. And then the church we were meeting in a school, and they wanted to build a building, and he volunteered to be the whole building manager and save them, probably a couple $100,000 by doing so much of the management on his own. And that took so much time. And then there were other leadership capacities. And so every Sunday we would go to church, people would grab him and he'd run off. And the truth is, we talk very openly about this, but he was a hero to everybody but me. And our kids really didn't feel like he was missing, because he was home when the 40 kids were over. So they're having the time of their life. He was a great dad, an amazing worker, but our marriage wasn't great. And it was
my priorities were way off.
Yeah. And I was sending up the warning flare, and it just wasn't, we talked about it. We did kind of an autopsy or whatever after. And he's like, I really just felt like we're going to be okay. We love God. We love each other. But it got to this point where that love tank, the account was draining. And I literally woke up one day and had no more love. I had negative feelings. I had no positive emotion. It was gone. I was like, I couldn't drum it up. I was just so exhausted from doing things for so long by myself. And I was telling on him to God. I'm like, I was so hurt and so mad. And I would never have left because I fear God, but I was ready to leave in my heart and sleep on the couch. Like, as if that's any better. But I really was like, he does not have my heart anymore. I don't have any positive feelings. And when I hear young people say, I've fallen out of love or whatever, it's like, these other couples are saying, God can resurrect any marriage. There was nothing left in my heart, because we'd gone these long stretches where I did not feel heard or seen or helped. And so when I was telling on him one day, the Lord thundered in my spirit, and he said, I know Kev's missing it right now, but between the two of you, you've committed the greater sin. And I'm like, what? And he said, you've allowed your love to grow cold. Kev's missing it, but he loves you. You pledged to me and to him to love him till death do you part. You're the one who allowed your love to grow cold. And I want you to go to him and repent and apologize and recommit to love him. And I can't even tell you how much that felt like it would cost me, because my anger was what was keeping the laundry done, the dishes done, the house clean, everything organized. And I'm not one to spout the anger. It was fueling me. And, but I feared God. And it wasn't, again, there was no positive feelings in my heart, but I feared God and I wanted his blessing on my life. And so I knew I had to do it by sheer obedience. And Kev was sitting in the living room, and this is back when they used actual blueprints. Everything's digital now, but he had a big blueprint across his lap, and he had some papers in his front of his face, and I put myself on the floor just to humble myself. And when I share this story, there are some women that raises their hackles, that makes them mad that I went so low. But I knew I do have a little feistiness in me.
A little.
So I knew that I had to go low, because I might have throat punched, as someone else on the panel talked about before the show, but I'm not going to name names. So I went low, and I just said, I need to talk with you about something. And it's not gone well for us these last handful of years. And bless his heart, he did not pull the paper down. He goes, yeah, uh-huh. And I said, I'm the one, God has shown me I'm the one who committed the greater sin. And then his paper went down. He's like, what? And I went on to share with him what I just shared with you. And I said, I whether you get me or not, whether you change your ways or not, because I love and fear God, I'm going to commit to loving you. And it's super scary to me, but I'm going to do it. And he slid off of his chair onto the ground and said, is this what my choices have cost you? And he cried and I cried, and it was not all rainbows after that. We literally had to relearn how to be married. And so that was the pivotal point. But those building blocks have radically not only changed our marriage, but the ministry, what we're managing. I can't even believe what God has done just because we turned towards each other, turned towards God, and just implemented some big priorities in our life.
Yeah, that moment of just her following God and that humble gesture that she made, what that did for me is throughout my whole life since that point really is sometimes we think we're so right, and we think I got this, I'm doing this right. We're going to be okay because I'm doing all this right. But I was completely blind to really what was going on in our life. And at that moment, it's just like the scales came off my eyes and I saw things for what they were. And at that moment, it's just like the humility in that moment. It's just like, I thought I was right, but I was so wrong. And to get to that point, now I can get there a lot quicker. Like I understand just what that feeling is. And I saw it firsthand how I can feel like I'm so right in doing the good work that God has called me to do, or however you want to put it. But at the same time, I was missing it. And that was just a game changer and Susie's, like Susie said, it took a while for us to try to relearn how to do this. But those moments that we look back on today, and we're very open about sharing that with people because it just feels real. We want to be very transparent with our own marriage because it helps, if that can help somebody else. Because I think a lot of guys do that, where we just think, I got this, I just got to crank out one more job. I got to do one more thing to try to keep doing what we do. As men, we're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders, it feels like sometimes. But I was missing her. And the worst part is I just completely did not see it.
Oh, well, you guys had a really great watchword. Don't make a permanent decision in a temporary season. And then you made a permanent positive decision. I think maybe the watchword is don't make a permanent negative decision in a temporary season. And that really was a turning point. Now, Ron and Nan, you in your mindful marriage seminar, you often share a live example of what it looks like, how to trigger each other. And could you show us what that looks like? And
You mean right now we can do one? We can trigger?
I'll do the throat punch. There we go.
Please.
I think we made a pact before we started doing the seminar that we would always, and unfortunately, we always have a current dysregulated moment within us to share with our audiences. We just made a pact to say, let's not go back 10 years. Let's use something relevant and current, and daily we are given something that is triggering.
Triggers don't stop this side of heaven. It's what we do with them that is what up to us.
To Kevin's point and to Susie's, I mean, I was blind to my pride. I was trying to get him to stop being prideful. Our triggers happen when we are not humble before the Lord or humble towards one another, and we can get triggered in a lot of areas. We can get triggered with one another. We can get triggered with I'll speak for me, sorry, coworkers, our adult children. This past weekend, we were in a family situation, my side of the family, where, wow, instantly I was triggered and it felt like I was 6 again. Feeling those feels, feeling myself going into those ruts. I have done a lot of work myself, but there are people in my life that have not done their work. And so triggers just happen all the time. And so we always try to give a current, driving over here, there was a little lot of lane changes.
Something about my driving.
On Ron's part, that's triggering. I could go on and on, but it's in those triggering moments where I have to stop and say, wait a minute. There's something I can work on here. Yeah. I can either walk in the flesh, that throat punch kind of moment, or I can pray and calm myself, humble myself, thank you, and surrender to God and say, okay, what does it look like to walk in your spirit, Lord, in these moments? And see him how you see him, or whomever can be the triggering moment. So
I just want to add a quick thought. 1 Peter 5:5, God opposes the proud and gives grace to the humble. And we like to add, and so do spouses. We just heard it from Kevin and Susie. Humility invites grace, right? Her bowing, then Kevin's going, wait a minute, what's my side of this?
That was beautiful, by the way.
But if we come with pride, I got this, I got it all figured out. Honey, you just don't know that I know that you should know what you should know. That posture invites opposition. And we will oppose each other in 1,000 different ways. The point is we'll get nowhere. So the things, what God has aligned, what God has created vertically in our relationship with him also works in earthly relationships. I'll just add one quick thing, Amy. I'm thinking about blended families for just a second. That what triggers painful pain cycles in couples often has to do with their dyad, their coupleness, their usness, if we could say it that way. What often triggers that in blended family couples is something outside of their dyad, something related or connected. So it's a disagreement about parenting. Wait a minute, you're treating my child differently than you treat your children. I don't think that's fair. I don't feel safe or loved. See, those are the two things. It always comes, I don't feel safe. My kid doesn't feel safe. So now I'm blame, shame, control, or escaping you. And that's it. That fast it happens. It could be an ex-spouse makes a phone call. We're coordinating children moving between homes. That sets off something in somebody. Now I feel insecure or jealous or something. And here comes the blame, shame, control. Like it can come from a lot of different directions. And that sidelines a lot of blended family couples because they just don't know how to navigate all of that step stuff, we call it. And that's one of the things we try to do in our ministry is help them know what that stuff is and why it is and what they can do about it. So it comes from bizarre places. At the end of the day, I still have to manage me. It doesn't matter who started it or how, but I got to manage me.
Yeah. You know what? Ron, I'm so glad that you brought that up. Do you think you could go dive a little bit deeper into some of those other, as we're talking about triggers and that dysregulation, could you talk a little bit more? Because I know a lot of people would like to lead into the blended family because that's your specialty at Family Life. And just maybe you could talk to us a little bit more about that, please.
Yeah, so the 4 steps is like, what do we do? How do I go from my old self to a new self? And this is all Dr. Terry Hargrave's stuff, his wife Sharon. We collaborated with them on the Mindful Marriage, but it's their stuff. They get the credit for it. It's a simple little process, but oh my goodness, is it hard to get to the place where it becomes simple to do, okay? Simple 4 steps. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say my pain. So something happens and I feel like, oh, she just reacted to my driving. Let's just use that one. That's current. She just did, I heard that little on the other side of the car. You think I'm driving bad? What is Ron feeling? Instead of going back at her, Ron goes inside me. What am I feeling? Oh, it's that inadequacy thing again. Yep, that's my childhood pain that I carry right into my adulthood. I'm feeling, not enough. So I say this out loud. I just simply make the statement, I'm feeling inadequate. I don't say because you, blah, 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 or when you don't do any of that. That's right, because that's blaming, right? So I'm feeling inadequate. Number 2, step 2, and what I usually do with this, I'm saying this out loud in front of my wife. What I usually do with this, honey, is I get critical of you. I blame right back. I push it back on you and somehow take it off of me. The truth is, step 3, the truth is, God tells me I am inadequate, and that's okay. By his blood, I'm forgiven, I'm redeemed, it's okay. I go vertical first and establish truth there, and then I go horizontal truth. And the truth is, yeah, I'm a pretty good driver, but I'm not perfect. It's actually okay if I made a mistake, and you're calling attention to that. So, honey, number 4, here's what you can expect different out of me right now. This is the change moment. This is my old self wants to make it about you. My new self has got to make a different choice. And I'm going to, out of my truth that I'm okay as an inadequate person, I'm going to say, tell me a little bit more about that. What made you feel uncomfortable? I can tell now that you were feeling unsafe. That triggered you a little bit. I'd like to hear more about that. Now I'm doing something very different than what I used to do. Now that little 4-step process is so hard in the moment. The whole point of pain is that it dysregulates me and I want to defend, fight, or flight. So to step out of that, we have to move up into the prefrontal cortex part of our brain that turned off for a second. And saying the 4 steps out loud helps you do that. It's me preaching to me about how I can be somebody new. I don't have to be my old self. Me preaching to me sends a signal to my own brain. When you say these 4 steps out loud, you're actually turning your brain back on. That's amazing. Number 2, it's sending a signal to her. Ron just put on humility. Ron just started looking in the mirror. Ron just started dealing with himself. So guess what? She doesn't have to do. She doesn't have to deal with me.
I don't have to throat punch him.
There you go, right? Because Ron throat punched himself. Ron preaching to Ron starts the process of me being humble, and it invites grace in the usness between us. As long as I'm in pride, we're in opposition with one another. We will never get to anything good. The amazing thing about this whole thing is that it basically teaches us self-control. Now that is funny because we have expected people in marriage education for years to put on self-control when they needed it. And neurologically, they can't do it unless they turn their brain back on and they get tapped into the power of who God is making them new to be. Then everything we've ever taught in marriage education becomes a tool that's available to them, but not until they do that.
And with this 4-step process, we have more conversations now about ourselves. We have more carefrontation, so to speak, than confrontation. And there's a lot more dialogue towards forgiveness and listening to one another than we've ever had.
And those are things we've always known we should do.
Sure.
But when you get dysregulated, it all goes out the window.
It just shuts it off.
So turning yourself back on, putting on the new is the key that
And
opens up all the other stuff.
And that humility that you talked
I
about.
love that. That was so helpful. And, I love that we're turning this as we're getting ready to kind of land our plane here over the next, 10 minutes or so. Each of you have some positive practices that have benefited your marriages like that. And then you share them through your ministry. Now, Tami and Brad, you actually ride a bicycle built for 2 in your ministry, Tandem Ministry. Can you share a little bit about some things you do and what you've learned?
Of course. So this started out as a great idea. I had our 2nd year of marriage. I was going to buy her a gift that was a tandem bike until I put some money down on it. All the firefighters I worked with said, that's a terrible idea. People always fight on a tandem bike. What we know now is that spending that kind of time together will expose things. In fact, we call that bumping into each other's brokenness. That's what happens in that moment. And we've all been there. But now we think of the bike as sort of that place where we can work things out. It's sort of like taking an evening stroll together. We get on the bike, we've got time to have some conversations. And honestly, you can't ride a tandem bike together without smiling. It's pretty epic. It's really taught us the importance of going in the same direction, being in sync, learning to think together, not alike, but together. To have better communication and really to have the kind of rhythm that we need to stay balanced. What it looks like is for us to be on the same team. We won't always agree, but we always try to understand each other. So I would say for us that tandem bike we got in our 2nd year of marriage really has become kind of a metaphor for how we've learned to do marriage together.
Exposes our differences. For Brad, he wants to get to the destination and with speed. Me, I want to enjoy the journey and take it slow. Thankfully, I usually win on this one.
Yes, he does.
Well, and too, sometimes you take other couples and you do ministry with your bike. I keep kind of nudging my husband on that one because I'm like,
I like that.
Yeah, that started with, we really are passionate about pastoral couples and the toll it takes on their marriages. And so we would raise money, and we would take the pastoral couples out for a weekend and just love on them and let them be real with us and not feel judged. And they wanted them to feel safe. And we would plan these at each destination. You know, we would talk about some things, and then as they're riding the bike, because we have 2 tandem bikes now, they would be able to talk and answer the questions. And we always do this on a beach boardwalk. And here in California, we have lots of great beaches. So they would be able to talk and answer those questions. And then we would stop, an hour or so later, and go over the things they talked about. So really, it was an important weekend. So God's used the tandem bike, turn it into 2 tandem bikes. And it's something we just love to do and give ourselves away that way.
Side note, the newer tandem bike we have is a Schwinn. The old one, the original one, is actually made by a company called Ferrari.
Yeah, so
we have a Ferrari in the garage.
Sorry.
We still have the original tandem bike. It's beautiful.
I love it. And Susie, you and Kevin have some examples of ways you have grown together. I know you have some special traditions on your anniversary.
Yeah. We started doing this. Boy, it's been a long time, but we, part of the story when I was like trying to carry so much on my backs all the time, and it's like there's a place where you're surrendered to God, and it's like, what is it that you want from us? And so we kind of had that posture going into this. We started this, I don't even know how long ago it's been, but on our anniversary, which is in March, we would do this thing we would call the impossible prayer, and we would just say, God, is there something that you want us to do? And it'd always be something different. We kind of would go on our own and just say, God, what is it that you're speaking to us? And then we would come together, and most often it would be like something that God is speaking to both of us. And sometimes it was audacious. Sometimes it would be like, I want you to give a large amount of money to something, or it was always something that really cost us. But we felt like, whatever it is, God, we want to follow you fully. So whatever it is that you ask of us, that's what we're going to do. So we've the stories that have come out of that in our own marriage and our own life has been really just incredible things that God has shown us, the things that he wants us to do. And when we do that, we submit ourselves to him and what he asks of us. I think about our life now compared to when I felt like I had to carry the weight of the world on my shoulder. We are right now accomplishing 5 times more than we ever did when I was so close to burnout, because I was carrying so much. I look back on it now and it's like there's just a different posture when you are listening to what God is asking of you, and he tells us what he wants to do, and then he gives us everything that we need to do it. And we look back on that, and sometimes it would be some audacious thing that we just I don't know how this is ever going to happen, this thing he's asking us to do, but we would just go step by step by step, and at some point we would look back and say, we did it, that thing, and he provided everything that we need, and we didn't kill ourselves doing it, so there's something about that where it's just a different posture. We still accomplished a lot, but we have a pretty good bedtime. We rest well. We have some margin in our life, and but we're doing way more than we did back when we were trying to struggle, or especially me. I was trying to struggle and carry all this weight on my own. But God gives us just what we need. I look back on it right now, and I think if there was ever a time when a lot of couples get to that point where it's just it's too hard, I'm going to check out. I'm done. I've had enough. And I look at what we have right now, and if I look back, I can't even imagine having a better marriage. The way we live our lives right now, and the joy that we have with each other is such an incredible thing. So to look back at that moment, there's a lot of points in our story where it would have been easy to say, I'm done, and
in the moment it would have been easy, but it's always so costly, as you know.
Yeah, so, just we're so glad that we hung in there, and not that it was easy, but that was absolutely the right choice.
And I would say the impossible prayers were born out of one of the big rocks. When we start to kind of renegotiate our marriage, when we decide to rebuild. We both had active prayer times in the morning, our devotion time with the Lord. But I said a non-negotiable for me is that we continue that, but then we come together every morning. And then we pray every night. But our morning time, really, I work full time in radio, and he as you know, is in commercial construction. But we do it in the morning. We have our separate time, and then there's this double wide chair where he sits and I come over and sit with him. What do you got? What's the Lord telling you? And we spend extensive time praying and some time listening. And out of that place, we became mission-minded in our marriage, where we started to get a global picture of being a part of the solution for some of the world's ills: human trafficking, poverty, educating children in third world countries, different things like that. And that's where, when we start to kind of get an appetite for the impossible, because we were, we'd feel the nudge and we would say, we are on mission. We've got a mission. We control that God wants marriage to be a fortress. So it's not just about you and your spouse and your comfort and your feelings and your truth, which is we're in this society that makes it all about us. I really believe in the kingdom model. Our marriage is to be a fortress as we build one brick upon another of faithfulness, of forgiveness, of obedience, of dreaming, of faith risks, of all this consistency. It's a place where people can run and hide and find shelter. I mean, I know it's the same with these couples, but young couples that are on the brink will come under our wing and they'll tell us where they're at, and we're honest about our story. And then the people that we're able to help, where I think of like our finances were one of the worst, hardest, most broken parts about us because of medical debt, not frivolous living. And there was a point in our story where there's just a light turned on, and we thought, we're going to make the devil sorry he messed with us, and we're going to become generous sowers. And as we follow God's lead, we watch the enemy's plan for us fall apart. And so we developed kind of like a 10 commandments of a legacy priorities for us in our marriage that we still want to hand down to our children and grandchildren. But all of that, I would say, came out of that strong, staunch commitment to our prayer time. And I feel like God has allowed us to do that in spite of, there are some days you have to get out the door early, but we'll pray while he's driving. But it's a non-negotiable for us. And in that place, I would say dreams are conceived in intimacy and they're achieved through intimacy, both with God and with your spouse. And so that's when everything changed for us, and there's just no going back.
Brad and Tami, just to go back to the bike thing, if we look back in a very practical sense, when we talk to young couples, it's like, you need to pray together. You just need to do that. You need to have your own walk with the Lord, but you need to come together at some point. And we've seen so much power in that. It feels like, for me, there's like another gear that happened in my bike that was like, I had a way to, once I kind of realized I don't have to carry the world, I need to trust the Lord with what I'm walking through today. That was a gear. I'm telling you, we went 5 gears up when we just started to do that.
You always say your dependence on God is your superpower.
Yeah, it's a supernatural thing, and I don't know how to explain it other than it really works. When we come together and we just say we seek God together as a married couple, it's supernatural how it actually just multiplies the influence and the impact that you can have in the world today.
Oh, well, I think that's one thing that all of our marriage leaders have every single one always says, that the power of prayer and prayer together as a couple. And then all of y'all, and truly another one of best practices that people always recommend is that couples find mentors who are a few steps ahead of them on their journey to help them weather those speed bumps. And as we mentioned, you all have been married 40 years or more, and you are all just about 10 years ahead of my husband and I. So don't be surprised if you get a call from me one of these days. Oh, well, Susie and Kevin, Ron and Nan, Tami and Brad, you all have just been delightful. Thank you so much for being here. It was just such a pleasure talking with each one of you.
Our pleasure as well.
What an honor.
It was an honor.
Oh, well, viewers, thank you as well for tuning in for National Marriage Week. Don't forget to join us tomorrow and find answers to your questions at marriageweek.org.